Tonight's hearing, we predict its return. An unsupervised open public space next to student accommodation. You'll recall we spoke about this earlier today. Holding 1,500 students, a nighttime disaster for surrounding residents and a future drain on public resources. After tonight's decision, we predict sleepless nights coupled with police and noise abatement teams on regular call-outs. The developers finally promised to enclose this space, open to the public during the day, but safe to residents at night, and the community fought hard for this improvement. Yet, after tonight, the bookies' money is on all our good work being overturned. Originally, Spitalfields' renewal was a success because people moved back into the neighbourhood to live and work. They stay because we have buildings of quality, not quantity. Tonight, when you give the final green light to yet another development, all that will be lost. I honestly and sadly believe the repeated predictability of these hearings demonstrates the reverse of democracy in action. I'd just like to end by saying I see the draft conservation area consent was in the pack. I couldn't find the refusal draft in the pack. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. If you'd like to, are you the next objector?
There's only 2 minutes left. You go. You don't. Sorry. Because there's over
How much time have we got left?
We were intending that 2 of us would speak. Is that possible still?
Yes, I mean, you've got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah,
so
well,
Mine's 2 minutes.
shall I go first?
far away.
Okay. I just wanted to, thinking I was ending, to make a couple of points about the democracy of the situation. There's a democratic process for dealing with planning issues, and at a public hearing, a democratic decision was taken by elected local councillors. They know the area and they understand it, and what it needs and what its future might be. A democratic decision was taken, hearing much the same arguments as we've heard tonight, as you've heard, and the arguments that we put forward there prevailed. The new plans were not considered to be worthy of the site. Of course, you can always find people who will support it, any development, and you'll hear from some of them, but it is worth remembering how many people objected to it. The leader of the Conservative group and the Labour group on the council, the Spitalfields Community Group, the Spitalfields Trust, English Heritage, Save Britain's Heritage, and a host of leading architectural historians, conservationists and historical societies. Also 2 petitions, which now total over 1,000 signatures. Interestingly also, at a local by-election hustings, the different candidates, Labour, Liberal, Independent and Conservative, vied with each other as to who could show the strongest opposition to the scheme. This was in the Spitalfields ward. So at the end of all this, we had essentially won the democratic argument. Now we're here in this rather strange situation where you can push this through with the City of London, with Exemplar. But we really would ask you, you came to visit the area today, perhaps you will have seen that it is not the City of London. It is slightly different. And this is a City of London scheme. If it goes back to the drawing board again, I'm sure they can come up with something a bit better. And then perhaps we can all agree on it. We won't have some people sitting here and some people sitting here divided, but perhaps we can agree on something better, which suits not the city, but Spitalfields.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think that probably concludes, unless you've some final point you want to make. Thank you very much. That probably concludes the objectors. I'm most grateful. Could I now hear from the supporters of the scheme? Again, 15 minutes. And you do what?
There were 3 individuals.
Oh, sorry. We've got supporters here?
Yes, three supporters, I think.
Maximum 50 minutes all told, but 5 minutes maximum for each individual.
Good evening.
Could you possibly introduce yourself?
My name is Chris Dyson. I'm an architect with my practice in the neighbourhood and a graduate of Oxford and Glasgow Schools of Architecture. I'm resident in Spitalfields since 1991. I've brought up my young family in the neighbourhood, and over the years, I, like others in this room, have grown to love and care the neighbourhood very much. I speak in this instance on behalf of the Spitalfields Society, a local amenity society and a statutory consultee of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, established in 1994. We had previously been consulted by Exemplar on this application prior to their submission to the local authority, and by others on previous applications for the site. Whereas we have raised fundamental objections to previous schemes for the site, we are very much happier with Exemplar's current proposals. We have been impressed by their efforts to consult with the local community and with the quality of the information provided, and their willingness to listen to the local opinion. We wrote to the London Borough of Tower Hamlets in support of their application for planning permission. We were disappointed that the scheme was refused consent. We were also bemused by the rather bizarre reasons for the refusal of planning permission, namely the loss of employment when there were in fact creating many more jobs on the site, the loss of housing when there is none presently on the site, and the loss of the gun pub, which is very little architectural value and significance. We have noted that the Mayor's reasons for reviewing the application and entirely agree with these, as we are keen to see the site should be brought back into beneficial use. We have seen many schemes come and go for this site and believe that the current proposals represent the best of these and as good as one might reasonably expect. Indeed, we believe the current team could produce a development of considerable quality. On behalf of the Society, we express our general support for the current proposals, and in particular, the following elements of the scheme. The imaginative retention of Brushfield Street elevation and main entrance, and the restoration of its original form. The creation of an arcaded pedestrian route along the south side of Brushfield Street. A new public route and spaces through the middle of the building from Artillery Passage to Spitalfields Market. A new public space to the southwest corner of the site at the junction with Artillery Passage. Retention of the existing bank and public uses on the site. Flexible and sustainable office space with independent retail and SME provision. The redevelopment of Whites Road car park, an eyesore and in poor condition, and the general quality of the detailed design and brickwork detailing, we feel are all very high. We remain dissatisfied, however, with two elements of the scheme. We have discussed these with the developer and the trust, and trust that these elements can be further improved during the forthcoming planning application and consultation process, or dealt with by condition thereafter. The presence of the retail pavilion within the open space to the southwest corner. This building turns its back on Whites Row and forms an unattractive termination of the northerly view up Bell Lane, while providing no useful accommodation. We would prefer to see this building replaced with a proper scheme of landscaping and planting of a significant number of trees into an area otherwise devoid of green spaces. The subsequent choice to develop this as an SME accommodation is unconvincing, impractical and inappropriate to the scale of the quality of both existing and proposed surroundings. The design of the upper two floors remains monolithic and unsympathetic to the quality of the lower floors, particularly when viewed from a distance or from upper floors of surrounding buildings and the top of Christchurch steps, and undermines the developer's efforts to break the commercial street elevation down into three elements. Lastly, we understand that the developer is willing to assist improvements in the surrounding area by funding a variety of measures to combat antisocial behaviour, a big problem in our neighbourhood. This is something that the local authorities conspicuously failed to do while actively promoting the nighttime economy and reaping the rewards, leaving the local community to deal with the result of antisocial behaviour and clear up the mess afterwards. We particularly support the initiative to use a portion of any 106 money arising from the development to reinstate the public toilets adjacent to the site on Commercial Street. This will help resolve the appalling lack of public toilet facilities in the area and the closure of a dangerous and badly run bar operation that consistently abuses its licence, and local residents would greatly support such a scheme, and it would greatly improve the setting of Christchurch Spitalfields. I put it simply in 3 final bullet points. This is jobs for the future, both for Spitalfields and London as a whole. This is a good developer, an exemplar. This is good architecture by Bennett's Associates. As an architect, I appreciate they've won 125 awards, including 15 RIBA awards, and I hope this project would actually lead to a further award for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Peter Sinden. This is my personal take on the observing the plans being brought forward for redevelopment of the Fruit and Wool building. I am owner and creator of the English restaurant, formerly Market Coffee House, on the corner of Brushfield and Crispin Streets, directly overlooking the Fruit and Wool Exchange building. My wife and I have owned our listed building since 1994, restored it from a ruin, and lived in it upstairs with our 3 children since those times. I am a builder turned restaurateur, and by my reckoning, a conservationist. The Fruit and Wool Exchange had been a magnificent building in its day, when the auction room was the centre of a nationwide industry. But since the closure of the wholesale markets, it's lost its key function. It's become muted and sad, and in the view of many, save for its handsome in-context facade and iconic public house, not widely admired. This is not a building which it is beholden on us to rescue, like Elder Street was, or Liverpool Street Station. In Spitalfields on the fringe of the city, if Spitalfields on the fringe of the city is to move forward and stay vibrant, potent, not atrophied, then an appropriate use for this site needs eventually to be found. It's a big footprint site. Taken together with a car park and empty service road between, it's a truly vast site. There's a great appetite for this type of modern office accommodation just now. Also, there's a demographic shift as the city and financial district move east. No wonder the Mayor's office deemed this a strategic site. With our quirky bohemian neighbourhood and traditional brick-built buildings, maybe we have something special to offer. Should we feel bad about attracting the brightest and the best? Of course not. We should be proud to play host to such high-quality tenants as have been mooted for this project. These companies recruit here in the East End and help nourish our community. This is but the latest twist and turn in our centuries-old, ever-changing Spitalfields. We should not fear it. We have seen a succession of schemes brought forward for this site, each of them pretty bleak and awful. Exemplars' early plans presented in a consultation exercise were not at all to my liking. It seemed to me the architect, with his starkly contemporary design, was attempting something inappropriate in our historic built environment. I wrote to Tower Hamlets voicing these concerns. At that time, I did not think I could ever be reconciled to the destruction of the Fruit and Wool. The plans were withdrawn, and developer and architect went back to the drawing board. The opinions of me and others were sought, and we expressed ourselves freely. One tends to be cynical about these consultations, but in this case they did appear to listen. The scheme did evolve, and by the end had made much progress in meeting our objections. I was pleased that proposed elevations were now stepped, not uniform. We saw stone string courses, soft red brick, revised fenestration, and stone with hardwood joinery for retail at ground floor level. Here was an act of humility on the part of the architect. This was at last a design simple and intuitive and sensitive to the context and texture of buildings it stands in relation to. I like the retention, indeed enhancement of the Brushfield Street facade, the public space loggia formed behind it, the now smaller retail units in a courtyarded arcade within, the part-subsidised SMEs, the broadly permeable ground floor. I don't like the loss of the gun pub, that emblem of East End tradition, 4 generations in one family, but I'm heartened by the promise of its return. Distinguished elements of its interior, bird's-eye maple panelling, glass-panelled ceiling, etc., must be conserved for eventual reinstatement. I shall miss the Fruit and Wool's wide and rangy double staircase with oak handrail, as thick as a thigh. I don't much like the massing of the upper floors, but I do understand the economic truth that any scheme with some hope of getting built must deliver value to its sponsors. Is there a better design for this site? Almost certainly yes, but that design is without a brief and simply won't get